Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I am your host, Paul O'Need, and as usual, we are sponsored by Coach's Corner University. Please head over to Coach's Corner University and use code podcast300 to register for our education collective. That will save you $300 off of over 200 hours of continuing education resources, as well as discounts on all of our courses. You will get lifetime access for $50, which is only going to last for probably another month before I change the whole platform and you miss the opportunity. So head over there, get your discount. We're also sponsored by TC Nutrition, Barefoot Shoes, and Bacon and Barbells. Find links to those in the show notes below. Today is another, I feel like I say this all the time, but this one I really, really mean it. A very special guest, Mr. Cody Miller. Cody and I met in 2010 at Robert Morris University. We were both interns with Coach Todd Hammer. He hated us both equally, and we loved each other verily. Cody, welcome to the podcast.
Paul, it's been too long. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. So I didn't get a chance to. I mean, I thanked you on the phone, but I didn't get a chance. Cody was one of the few people who picked up the phone and gave me a call when I got hurt. And we caught up and chatted for about an hour, and it was really special to me. So it speaks to your character, and I'm grateful to have you in my life, man.
Yes, and I know you do the same for me.
100%. So Cody has had quite the journey in strength and conditioning. Currently is a strength and conditioning coach with the U.S. military, but you've had a number of stops along the way. So maybe give the listeners a bit of an insight into your career trajectory.
So I first started out in strength and conditioning, took a pretty common path and decided I wanted to go collegiate. And so that was kind of the route that I took in terms of internships and graduate assistantships with stops with the first was Robert Morris with you in 2010, and then an internship in 2011 and at Mizzou. And then 2011 and 2012, I was an intern at West Virginia University. And then after that, a graduate assistant at Clemson. And after that, an assistant at Bucknell. And then again, the last stop was assistant director at Clemson with Olympic sports. And from there, kind of transitioned into the military and the tactical side. But that's pretty much like in a 3 sentences kind of my background.
Which is fantastic. Most people come on, they just spout off like, "Oh, I've been here, did this, I worked for this person." They name drop a whole bunch. But in true Cody fashion, you kind of get right to the point, which I love. One of the things that I found really fascinating when looking at what we were going to chat about today, I wanted to chat about your personal athletic history. Because I mean, I think that plays into a lot of our journeys, right? We end up competing in athletics and then want to go into coaching other athletes. But your athletic trajectory, you were, a very high level wrestler. Then you were a power lifter. You've done a little bit of everything, and now you're into like ultras and long distance endurance stuff. So talk to me a little bit about, where you've been athletically.
Yeah. So you saying I was a high level wrestler is very generous. The least.
I got to make you look good.
I was like a good high school wrestler, I would say.
Okay.
I was state champion, 4-time state placer. So in terms of like collegiate, like I wasn't even on the map. I never really did it. I walked on for a little bit at West Virginia, but it really wasn't for me anymore. I was really burnt out. And so I needed a new challenge. And that's kind of where I found powerlifting. I had some success at lifting weights. And I think at the time I kind of went towards powerlifting in college. I was at a crossroads because I did run a good bit when I was in high school, especially. So I happened to take the route of lifting, kind of pursued that as far as I really could. And with some pretty modest numbers, I think a 630, 640 competition deadlift, 606 squat, and a 450 bench, all those being raw
Drug-free.
at different body weights from 198 to 242. But really kind of threw myself into it and squeezed as much as I could out, and respectable, nothing, crazy. And now I've kind of gone back to the other route is running is, you know, and I think the ability to do both just goes to show you that I wasn't really meant to be great at either one. I can do both and kind of be okay
You're the most
at both of them.
modest. You're
Yeah.
being so modest. Like everyone comes on here and like pumps their own tires, and you're just like, I was okay at this. I was kind of mediocre at this. Like, have you ever taken a marketing course, read a
Oh,
marketing book?
no, I'm terrible at that.
Yeah, dude.
I do really bad. But I'm my father's son. He was a generalist. You know,
Yeah,
he's a good at everything, master of none. And so I think that really is my athletic career. Is that in one statement I could say I'm not even good at anything. All I can do is try hard.
I
Is
like that.
is really my I think if I had a motto or a legacy, it would be, he was okay. He really tried really really hard to be good at stuff.
I usually ask people on the podcast at the end, like, if you had a billboard message, what would it be? And I think that would be a perfect billboard message.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty durable,
Hmm.
and, lifting and running wise. I haven't had a ton of injuries, so I think that is what has helped a lot. Is that um, I'm not a Ferrari. Ferraris break down all the time. It's tough to break the Honda Civic. It's kind of you can kind of just run it into the ground and just go 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 and really treat it like trash, and it'll still run.
Well, I love that in your synopsis of your athletic career, you skipped over your sponsorship with Mountain Dew.
My little nephews got me Mountain Dew Zero Sugar for Christmas this year because they know
Perfect.
that's how much I love it.
When I
But
met Cody, he had a case of Mountain Dew in his car at all times, and he would just drink it throughout the day for additional calories.
yeah, well, when I was in high school, I wrestled 152, and then junior year of college, I was 250 because I was just force feeding like pizza and like
Donuts.
macaroni and cheese and donuts until like I was like puking up in my mouth. Is basically I was like, I'm just gonna get as big and as strong as I possibly can, and health. What is health? I'm just gonna do. I'm gonna take this thing to its extreme
Hmm.
and see what I'm capable of.
Well, I think that speaks to, the trying hard piece, because I don't think you really know what effort is until you take things to the extreme, whether it's strength or whether it's endurance or whether it's, insert any athletic capacity here.
Mhm.
You have to be able to take things to the extreme to truly know what you're capable of.
Yeah, I was just having this conversation the other day, and this actually is a great segue into kind of like the zone two craze,
Hmm.
and everyone does so much zone two. And had a person come up to me the other day, and they're trying to figure out exactly how fast they should be going on this training run that was supposed to be pretty hard. And they're like, I don't know what to do. And that knowledge would come with more experience, in that once you go hard, you know that, okay, I can hold this 7-minute pace for about 45 minutes before I start to fall apart. If
Okay.
you only do zone two stuff, your world of known is
Mm.
very small.
Yeah.
And if you never go outside of that low intensity and actually push at different intensities, you have no idea how far you can go at a certain pace. The same thing with a different weight. You can maybe, you know, do top singles
Hmm.
and really low intensity bodybuilding work. But if it's like a set of 5 or a set of 6 RM, then you
Hmm.
said, I really don't know what weight that would be. Like I have no idea. Um, and that may not be the best analogy, but it does just boil down to how big is your known world and how big is your unknown world in terms of intensities and volumes.
Well, I mean, the parallels between lifting and life are boundless. And when you look at pushing outside those comfort zones, that's really where true growth and discovery happens. And the same parallels with training. And zone two is one of those things, and it's actually a subject I wanted to talk to you about, especially as it comes to the tactical populations. It's like zone two to me is kind of a catch-all. It's just super easy to do. You can add volume to it almost, like I say almost without a trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
But do you really get the adaptations that you're looking for to be able to handle the different things that you're going to need to do for the application? I don't know. But it also lends itself to, well, heart rate is just one variable, right? You mentioned pace. So my heart rate will be it's a variable that is variable. It's not static, because some days the pace that I'm able to hold at a given heart rate is going to be different than other days based on my level of recovery and preparedness. But then the same could be held true for the pace you hold. So if you go 7-minute mile, right? One day that 7-minute mile might be zone 2, but it's only zone 2 for a certain period of time until your heart rate starts to creep.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you kind of balance the two with the taboo word of recovery?
Yeah. Heart rate can be very chaotic and unpredictable, especially with elite populations. And so I think heart rate based training is best for slower and more low intensity runs because it becomes more predictable and there's less of a delay. So say
Okay.
you start running fast at something that is non-zone 2, say you're running at your, for lack of a better word, anaerobic threshold, or like VT2 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm running pretty fast. In the beginning, it's a pace that I can hold for maybe 20 or 40 minutes. In the beginning, your heart rate is not where you would predict it to be at your like time to exhaustion, which would be like, maybe it's at zone 4 or whatever. There might be a delay in it getting there, and it stays relatively low, and then you have this cardiac drift where it starts to drift up towards that zone 4. So in that way, heart rate is tough because it's difficult to know in the moment whether this is exactly where my heart rate should be, or
Mm-hmm.
is it going to, whenever I start to really stretch out this pace, is it going to drift up where it's supposed to be? So that's the two things is there's a delay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is that you can have a suppression of that sympathetic response.
Mm-hmm.
And this happens in zone 2, is that you get kind of an artificial depression of your exercise heart rate, or your heart rate at exercise, because you have this parasympathetic dominance. And this is go into HRV and resting heart rate and all this stuff, but this is something that can happen with elite athletes, is that you get this overabundance of zone 2, which really drives parasympathetic dominance. And then because of that, you really don't have, during exercise, the ability to leverage adrenaline to become more sympathetic, because
Mm-hmm.
those, either the release or the receptors, there's just not enough actual machinery there to make that happen. And so you have a depressed heart rate. And usually what happens is you really can't run all that fast or for that long. And so this is another problem with zone 2. But yeah, to say to balance those two things, I think it's not even a balance of those two things. I think you hit a spectrum of intensities, just
Okay.
like you would when you're lifting.
Mm-hmm.
You're not lifting just singles and just 12s or 15 or 20 or whatever. Throughout the course of a year, you are hitting a lot of different intensities, because each intensity can carry with it a specific skill, and it also can carry with it a specific adaptation from the physiological standpoint.
It's really interesting because there's two schools of thought, right? There's the school of thought that we're just going to do, let's just talk with general athletics here. We're just going to do a ton of zone 2, and then we'll get our training at high intensities with weight training, but we'll never actually push those higher capacities. And then there's the theory of like training at extremes, where you never spend any time in the middle. You just spend time at really low intensities like walking, or really high intensities like HIIT training or sprinting. Um, could you steel man either of those cases?
Yeah, I'll steel man. I'll steel man both lifting. I'll steel man from a lifting or running perspective.
Let's talk about for like an athlete who wants to be well-rounded. And I mean, for the sake of the conversation today, let's stick to like first responder tactical populations.
Okay. Yeah. So when I think about the like a running based, let me steel man the zone 2.
Okay.
Okay. So if I'm going to steel man zone 2, if I'm going to, I start out with this question, and this will lead me to the answer. And I think this is where zone 2 and 80/20 actually came from, because it was an observation that then we kind of like did this post hoc rationalization for all the physiological things that zone 2 can, be beneficial for.
Mm-hmm.
But really, the question was, how do I do two things? How do I get in quality training as much as I really can? And then two, keep training just as a whole, fit as much training as I can in a week.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where 80/20 comes from, is that I can really only do quality work, 2-3 times a week, maybe if I'm running, like really, really quality work.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking VT2 or above, like zone 4, zone 5, really fast stuff if you're just looking at the high intensity type of domain. And then the rest of the time, like, what am I going to do? I'm just going to sit on my hands? No, I'm just going to fill in with stuff that isn't going to interfere with the high intensity stuff. So that's where zone 2, in my opinion, comes from. And that's why I think zone 2 works. It's because zone 2, it meets two criteria, and it fulfills two variables. Is that variable of how do I get as much quality training in, and is how do I train, just fill out a week and build up my capacity and stay training instead of just sitting around waiting for my next quality session, which also probably potentiates the quality sessions.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
There's a lot of things going on there. And when you think about it, 80/20, this is also what Louis Simmons talked about with conjugate, was
Yeah, absolutely.
80% of your work is low intensity, moderate intensity bodybuilding. 20% of the time it's high intensity. It's your repetition max or your max effort training sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's more of a pragmatic solution, and that's why I think it really works. Okay, so the downfall, let me steel man the middle,
Mm-hmm.
is that the middle, for running at least, this is what we would call probably VT1, ventilatory threshold 1. This is your aerobic threshold, really. And I would put the time to exhaustion of this is at the lowest maybe 90 minutes. At the most, it's going to be 3 hours. Okay, so it's not super, super long. Like,
That's pretty fucking long to be a VT1, dude.
it's long. It's long, but people can stay at VT1 for their entire marathon. Their marathon pace can be at VT1.
Just clarify for people what would constitute VT1.
VT1 is where I have the first nonlinear increase in lactate.
Okay.
So I'm just running, steadily increasing my pace, and I have a steady increase in lactate. And usually all of this is under 1 millimolar of lactate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 2 millimolars is, the research will tell you, 2 millimolar is that VT1. When you hit that 2 millimolar, then I have this nonlinear increase, and I have also a nonlinear increase in respiration. So I go from a relatively shallow nasal breathing usually, and then I go immediately into a deep nasal breathing. So it's a long nasal inhale, so I'm actually increasing the lung capacity as much as I can, the tidal volume, and then you have basically at that point stroke volume is also peaked. So you're having, I imagine everything just getting bigger and filling, right? And then other stuff happens down the way. But VT1, this is where kind of the limit of my aerobic capacity, doing most of the work. At this point, I start producing more lactate, and I have this slightly more reliance on anaerobic or glycolytic means.
And then, so to clarify, then VT2 would be the rate at which lactate accumulation supersedes your ability to clear it.
Yes. At that point, lactate production, lactate clearance, there's an inverse. So now you are really, or another way to say it is, your energy production is now at a deficit on your energy consumption.
Okay.
You're consuming more energy than you are producing, or your energy demand is more than your energy production.
Perfect.
Yep. So the steelman of this would be VT1. A lot of times with zone 2, a lot of it is not close enough to VT1 where you actually get a lot of benefit.
Mhm.
Like, you want to be a little bit closer to actually get an adaptation and to get some of the cellular respiration up and get all of the adaptations that you want, like increase in mitochondria or increase in the actual respiration of individual mitochondria and all these things. Sometimes zone 2 is actually too easy, and it's harder to figure out where you are in zone 2. Like you said, it's a catch-all for easy stuff.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's too easy. But at the same time, you get, like anything else, the zone 2 craze. It creates kind of a diminishing return of that.
Mhm.
Once you do that easy stuff and you get really, really efficient at low intensity stuff, and you just become really, really great at utilizing fat at really low intensities, sometimes you lose out and you don't develop that aerobic power, where now I'm utilizing fat faster and I'm able to really get closer to that that peak aerobic output. You're not quite creating too much lactate. So that would be my steelman for VT1, is that also a lot of activities are at VT1. Like a lot of your longer events, half marathon, it's going to be better specific work for you. And a common assessment of tactical populations is 12-mile ruck,
Mhm.
which, if you're really good, under 2 hours is a very respectable time. And so that's right at VT1. So, for the layman, that's going to be somewhere around 75% heart rate. And depending on what you use, max heart rate or heart rate reserve. But typically I don't even go there. I just say, it's a power nasal breath, or it's a deep nasal breath. And that's kind of how I know I'm at VT1. Pair that with, I'm above 70% of my max heart rate, and, I'm not breathing through my mouth. It's a pace that I can hold for an hour and a half to 2 or 3 hours. That's probably reliably VT1.
Now, one thing that I found, especially with aerobic training, honestly, more so than strength training, is in order to coach it effectively, you really have to do it. You really have to be participating in it. Is that something that you found for sure?
Yes, 100%. And that's part of why, I end up coming back to this, is that it's a new challenge. And, in collegiate strength and conditioning, it's not always like this, but usually you are there's a reason that you're called a strength coach, is because you do the strength training and the sport coach says, okay, now it's time to condition. You can go away. I'm going to take care of this. So I think in terms of my skill set, the conditioning part was really undeveloped for the past. I started getting bigger into it probably 5 to 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. But before that, like, my conditioning, my endurance sort of skill set was anemic. It was very, very poor, I would say. So it's another opportunity for me to get better.
Mhm.
And the best way I know how is to do it. And so that I can combine sort of this experiential knowledge of doing it and knowing what it feels like, and pair that with theoretical knowledge to really convey information to people as to, here are some numbers, and here are some things in terms of, if you like heart rate, if you like to use RPE,
Mhm.
if you like to use pace, like I got you. But then in terms of, just feeling, not necessarily an RP of 7, RP of 6, but what does that actually feel like? Using things like comfortably hard or weirdly sustainable, or or like death, like it feels like you're dying. and using kind of qualitative language to really figure out where you are in terms of intensity when you're running or doing different conditioning drills.
Yeah, one of the things that I've never done very long duration aerobic activity. The longest I've ever run, I ran a half marathon in my undergrad. Most
Nice.
people don't know that.
That's awesome.
Um, but at some point there has to be an anchor. So it's something that Dave Tate talks about all the time is you have to have something to anchor your effort to. So even when it comes to zone 2, like zone 2 is really easy, but most people use heart rate as a proxy. And if it's really easy and their heart rate's where they are, they don't really focus on anything else. But you talked about weirdly sustainable. It's like, what does that feel like? And what does unsustainable feel like? Like, what does that pushing VT2 time to exhaustion, like, can you get to time to exhaustion? And my argument for why zone 2 tends to be favored, or why I tend to favor it, is because it just builds your gas tank so that when you do decide to push up to that upper limit,
Mm-hmm.
there is more of an ability to try to get there. Because to be fair, most people aren't even fit enough to push their aerobic capacity.
Yeah, and you can see this. I mean, every measure, every kind of physiological turn point. If you are sedentary, all of these are like super depressed. So, and this is why people base build. They do zone 2, and I'm not knocking zone 2 completely because it's important for performance, but it's especially important for health.
Yeah.
If you're a health minded person, like I say, go all in on it because we can see typically like people put threshold heart rate at somewhere but 165 or 155, somewhere in that ballpark, maybe 170 for your anaerobic threshold. With sedentary populations, this can be as low as 115,
Yeah.
110. Like it's down there. And this is one reason why VO2 max is a good predictor of health, is because when that keeps dropping and your activity is just, it's so intense for you, there's like a lot of metabolic things that flow downstream that are not good.
What do you think your VO2 max was when you were 250 pounds?
I don't know, because I was, it's per kilogram. So, I mean, it wasn't good, maybe 25, probably,
That's so funny.
less than half of what it is now, but it's
That's
not
that,
good.
what one of the things that also I wanted to touch on is like the mental side of
Mm.
endurance activity. It's something I've spoken about with Tony Montgomery, friend of mine. He actually co-founded Coach's Corner with me a few years ago, and has since stepped away to do his PhD. And he's taken up ultras. And Tony's area of research is actually the psychology of exercise and how we can use exercise to influence our mood, our cognition, and ultimately our symptoms of different depressive disorders. When dealing with populations who are required to endure a great deal of stress, what are some benefits of these types of higher intensity or longer duration endurance activities that you've seen, or maybe how you use them?
From a psychology standpoint.
Yeah.
So if someone is doing a very hard physical run, I think about the expectations, and this actually goes into, I'm going to take this into kind of a parallel. Maybe it's on the lines you want to talk about, but the way I look at some of these mental things, these psychological things, is when I started running again, I had taken 15 years off, and Cayt and I ran 2 miles. We didn't run 2 consecutive miles. I had to take a break. I ran like a mile, and I was like, nah,
Nah, bro.
we need to walk for a bit. And so I walked for a bit, and I did it. We did another mile. It was 2 miles. Next time we ran, we did 2 miles, and it was continuous. From that moment, I ran that 2 miles. I was like, I can run 100. And what, I was just weird in my mind. I was like, but it was unconscious. It was subconscious. It wasn't like I consciously was like, yeah, I can run 100 miles. It was like, it was just clicked. It was like, I can run 100. And I said, what is it that produces that sort of feeling in my mind? And I basically boiled it down to, if you're familiar with Bandura's self-efficacy.
Yep.
And the number one thing is mastery experiences, in that you have a bunch of successful experiences in an activity or activities, and you keep stringing together wins, and you keep winning so much that it becomes a habit. And when you do lose, what you get is this toolkit of coping and these different cognitive processes that allow you to strategize and then continue winning. And so it all kind of boils down to continually seeking appropriate challenges. And if I can seek appropriate challenges and I can win most of the time, and we know from machine learning that about 15% failure rate is optimal, which is about 1 out of every 7 attempts at something. And I would say probably even less failure is okay too, because if you look longitudinally, I think it pans out. But if I can keep stringing together wins, I get a ton of mastery experiences. And then the few times that I do fail, I get so much benefit from figuring out how not to fail in the future. If I'm willing to just kind of look at it objectively, not get, emotional or consider this a personal failure or anything of my worthiness or anything like that. If I can remain relatively rational. And so I think that hard training just in general, not even, it can be running, it can be lifting or whatever, but the main things that we're getting is when we win, there's a trade-off too. When I win, I don't get the coping and I don't get the cognitive processes of trying to figure out how to win again. But with winning, it becomes almost an expectation. And it becomes and this goes into expectation theory, is that if I continually expect to win, it's going to beget more winning. Winning begets winning. These are positive feedback systems that go ahead.
Yeah. What comes to mind is like, can you use this model to then put people in situations where they inevitably will lose,
Yeah.
so that they can get these coping strategies? Like, put them in a situation where you program a run or some sort of activity that is either so long or so hard or both that they will just absolutely break themselves off just to learn a lesson.
Yeah. And you learn what you're, like we talked about earlier, you learn what you're actually capable of doing. And I think, running is a great example, because if you go out and you do a run and you fail to meet your expectations, that's what I would consider a failure, is I'm falling outside of my expectations, what I would usually consider a good performance or what my performance usually is. And so if that happens, and then we can go back and actually say, okay, so why did this happen? And we look at internal and external. What's going on inside? What's going on outside? Is it something that I did training wise, or is it something environmental, or is it something that I did nutritionally? Right. So there's, with running, especially running long events, the longer you go, the more it is a nutritional and logistical exercise. And that's also why I like it, because I'm actually not that good at running. So, but I can do all that other stuff. I can just prepare really well,
Right.
and have like my logistics down to a T, and I can try real hard. So there's a multitude of different things we can learn by failing in running, because it's not just the physical part. Is it also my self-talk and what I'm telling myself and what I'm believing about myself? And, that kind of goes into the self-efficacy part and confidence, if you want to call it that. So yeah, I think you put people into, if I'm looking at this at like a weekly training, if I know that 1 out of 7 times I should be challenged and maybe fail, that means once every 2 months or so, I should fail. I should be testing that limit to try to establish maybe new paces, or try to push a certain distance that I I've been training around and see what happens. And then I can deal with failure and I can regroup and I can strategize about what comes next. And then I can prepare better and I can do it again.
I always found it fascinating. Running is one exercise. CrossFit was another one that I found fascinating because take a burpee, for example. Okay. Say your workout is like 1,000,000 burpees. You're not going to fail a burpee. Like there's very few situations in which you will get your chest to the floor and physically not be able to stand up.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, there are very few instances in which you will not be able to put one foot in front of another. So like actual mechanical failure in endurance activity does not exist. Whereas in lifting,
Mm-hmm.
I can fail a lift. Like very often you fail lifts. How does that play into the way in which you coach like endurance activity? Like I think for me that would be the most mind bending type of exercise. It's like like go run 100 miles.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're mentally tough enough, you could probably get through it as long as time wasn't an issue, right? As long as you had infinite amount of time, you're not
Yep.
going to fail at putting one foot in front of the other.
Yep. So there's a couple things that come to mind. One is physical, one is psychological. The one physical thing that you can train is it's actually a hot topic of research right now. It's called durability.
Okay.
And what this is basically you being able to stretch out a certain pace or a certain speed that you're running at for more time. So say I have somebody who's running a 7-minute mile and I have someone that's running a 7:05, right? If that person who's running a 7:05 can hold that for 30 minutes and the person that's running, the 7-minute can only run it for or hold it for 27 minutes, they're not necessarily faster. They're only running at 7:05, but the person that is running at 7 has this big degradation in their pace. So that's just one example. Durability is basically just being able to stretch out and be more metabolically efficient at given paces. And so there's that sort of physiological part to it, is that over time you just get better at holding paces longer. You become more you're able to endure more from a physiological standpoint. The second thing that comes to mind is it's less it's harder to quantify.
Mm-hmm.
But it basically comes down to toughness and your ability to do one of four things. It's either internal or external association or disassociation are the kind of the four quadrants of kind of what's going on inside my mind. And that means I'm either internally or externally kind of disassociating and kind of going blank,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm actually focusing on something internally or externally, like, I'm thinking about my wife, or I'm thinking about, my kids, or, internal would be I'm thinking about my heart rate, I'm just focusing on my feet, like landing underneath. And so I'm associating my effort and I'm focusing on something versus internal or external disassociation, which external would be like I'm looking at it's the common ultra thing is like get to the tree or get to the fire hydrant,
Mm.
and so that would be external association, I guess, but external disassociation would be just getting distracted by things more than getting like focusing on something and getting to the next thing.
Okay.
But yeah, so these are kind of the four things that people are doing kind of unconsciously. But from a practical standpoint, a lot of that, the self-talk too comes into it is, not necessarily positive self-talk, but what self-talk is going to get me further, faster. And for me, it's usually a little negative, if I'm being completely honest.
I could see that.
Yeah. It's
I
kind of
could see
like, you, I believe in effective self-talk, not necessarily positive self-talk. So,
that. So you would fall into the more David Goggins style of self-talk.
probably, yeah. No, I'm not, it's not as negative, but it's not positive by any means.
No.
So yeah.
What's been one of the biggest eye openers for you changing from the collegiate sector to tactical populations? Because I think I know if I was in a situation, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I know what the demands are practically. I could probably program for this, but I know for a fact in practice, it's completely different. What would have been some eye openers for you?
A few things. What some of these guys are able to do is bonkers. It's
Yeah.
absolutely
Oh,
bonkers.
yeah.
In terms of you have people who can squat and pull 500-600 pounds, and they're able to run 5-minute miles, or they're able to run like 3-hour marathons at the same time. So, I mean, they're physically. A lot of these guys are physically gifted, very, very physically gifted. Um, Besides that, the the type of person, the character that you get, is usually really, really high character. I don't want to get into too much of like the NIL and like all of this stuff that's
Oh,
going on
God.
in
Yeah. No.
collegiate. Let's just say that I don't think it's a good thing, like for the individual, like athlete.
Yeah. I
Uh,
think financially it's great for them, but I think in
yeah,
terms of character building, it's trash.
yeah. Long term, I think it's a failure mode. But on the inverse, the type of character you get in the military is it's high class.
Mm-hmm.
Very respectful. They do what they're told for the most part, and they're just great people to be around. I mean, that's going to be probably the best part of my job is that these uh, these guys and gals that I get to work with, they are serving their country, and they're doing it in like the most high stakes sort of way, and they love to train, they love to get after it, and they're good people. So that's the best part.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of training a few U.S. military professionals, and one thing that always strikes me, as you said, like their physical capacity is absolutely bananas,
Hmm.
but they find this humor in the struggle. Like I thought that was so funny. I programmed one workout for one of my guys, and it was like a leg workout, and it finished with 200 air squats for time, but he wasn't allowed to move his feet. I don't remember his exact time, but it just blew. It was like somewhere around a minute and a half. Like just blew through these 200 air squats. And his comment in our app was, "Here's my time. Don't ever make me do this buds bullshit ever again." I was like, "Only you, man. Only you." Like I read it and I just laughed out loud because like they almost find enjoyment in the
Hmm.
pain.
You get in the collegiate, you have the problem of getting people going. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like pulling teeth. A lot of times with all right, let's go. You have to give effort, and you have to push a lot of people. Whereas in the military, a lot of times you're like, usually you have to
Yes.
say, you need to slow down. You
Pull
need
it
to do
back.
less. I have to tell people to do less all the time. And like people are doing like 13, 14, 15 training sessions a week. And I'm like, let's just not do that. And let's do a little bit less. You
Yeah.
try, I mean, you never want to like really clip somebody's wings.
Yeah.
Because they want to do that. They're so ambitious and so driven, and they really want to push the boundaries. They're go-getters, they're self-starters, like very industrious, like high conscientiousness,
Mm-hmm.
very, very high conscientiousness. And like you just have to be in the gentlest way, hey, let's try this, just to see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might, try it out, see how it feels. And I mean, that's really the type of conversation to get some of these people to do less, because they really they really want to go as hard as they can for as long as they can, all of the time.
Absolutely. Let's switch gears a little bit. You recently launched an online business, Hoopie Hybrid. And it's something that I'm really I'm really excited to share about the different ways that we can serve other people through health and fitness. What was the motivation? Like maybe what is Hoopie Hybrid, and kind of what was the motivation there?
So a hoopie is a person from the Ohio Valley,
Okay.
which is where I'm from. And it's basically like a poor, uneducated West Virginian that went up towards like Pittsburgh to look for work. It's
Okay.
basically what it is.
It's what you did. Yep.
I know, strange, but they're like there's a culture around hoopie, and that they're kind of like they're down to earth. They're blue collar. They're hardworking. They're honest. They are giving. They're grateful, um, and they're just good people, but very tough. And that's kind of the culture we wanted to bring to Hoopie Hybrid was, we're regular people. There's literally nothing special about me.
I would
But
argue against that, but okay.
I always say, I've told Cayt this before, that I am genetically not special, or I would say statistically special in terms of how many people have ever squatted 600, in terms of how many people ever ran 50 miles or 100 miles or whatever. It's a small percentage, but genetically very normal. If you were to look at my DNA under a microscope, it would look like just about everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is what a hoopie is a relatively common person, but is able to do uncommon things.
I
And so
love
that
that.
was our motivation for Hoopie Hybrid was, we are common folk, we're common people, but that does not keep us from pushing and doing what we think are cool things. So we started this business and started online, but doing some in person as well too,
Okay.
early on. And the beautiful thing about Cayt and I's approach to this is that she approaches fitness as something that should be complementary with your life,
Mm-hmm.
and that it should feed into your health and wellness. It should be a part of your just a holistic, healthy lifestyle. And I take things to the extreme and just see how far I can go
I was going to say that's quite the dichotomy.
before I break. And I use the analogy of us both being airplane pilots. Like we both love flying airplanes. Cayt likes to fly a Cessna. She likes to go to the local airport, take it out for a spin, just enjoy flying. The experience of flying is great. She doesn't have to go fast. She doesn't have to go high. She can just be flying and be out in the sun and above the clouds, and it's beautiful, and there's something just so awesome about just flying. And you come back down, and when you feel like it, you go up again. Whereas I am more of a test pilot, and I'm trying to break, some multiple of the sound barrier. And it's never been done before, and I'm flying, and like everything's rattling, and like alarms are going off, and like it's like, hey, you should slow down. I'm like, no, shut up, keep going faster, and like panels are flying off. But in a nutshell, like we're both doing this hybrid thing where we're running and lifting.
Yeah.
The way it is applied and executed between the two of us is very different.
Yeah.
And I think there's just something very beautiful about that.
I would agree for sure. Hybrids become quite the rage lately. Everyone's jumping into. I think it's funny because they're like, "Yeah, man, I lift and I run." I'm like, "So you're like a generally fit person?"
Yep. It's a generally fit person until maybe this is where hybrid actually happens, until you start taking those two things to their extremes. And then you run into the trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
That is where maybe hybrid is actually happening. And I usually say it's tough to make and even with running and lifting, like there's obviously these things are not complementary. Like
No.
my muscle mass goes up, I get better at lifting, the cost of running goes way up too.
Oh yeah.
And so these two things are not complimentary by any means. And
That's
so
why I don't run. It's just too expensive.
it is too expensive. It literally will. I mean, and that's why I'm going on a rant here, but
Go.
people say that, you know, running or conditioning, it doesn't interfere with your gains. Yeah, it won't if you're really bad at both of them. If you take those things, like, do you know what happened whenever I was like, I pulled, if I'm pulling 640 or whatever, there's one time I just got into like conditioning, and I was doing like some biking and stuff. Dude, my deadlift like plummeted. It plummeted, but I was also pushing the strength literally as high as it could go. I think I was training. I pulled like 675 or something in training, and I did like just a baby amount of conditioning, like a baby amount, and my deadlift went like nosedive. So I think that number one, if you are pushing something to its extreme, whether it's running or lifting, and you add a stressor, those stressors consolidate and they compound, and now you're having to sacrifice and trade off somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I would actually return back to the initial part of our conversation about zone 2, because this is where, to me, zone 2 comes in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you want to get some aerobic capacity in. And for me, I personally think zone 2 as a lifter, whether you're a bodybuilder or power lifter, zone 2 to me should be non-negotiable, because you are going to get some aerobic capacity improvements to a point.
Mm-hmm.
But that point in which you get it is all you need to recover faster between sets, take your sets a bit longer, recover faster between sessions, accumulate more training volume, all that good stuff that you want. And it comes at really no cost. But as soon as you start pushing that aerobic capacity, now you have trade-offs. So like, I totally agree with you there. Now you're going to run 100 miles.
Yes.
When?
Yeah. It's February 22nd. It's in Florida. And just finished up my biggest this last week, and was actually my biggest training week. So it was overall 92 miles last week.
Holy shit.
And finished with a 50K 2 days ago. So that was probably my longest. It'll be my longest run of the training. And it's mainly relying on mileage. This train up is just a lot of kind of faster mileage,
Okay.
rather than relying on kind of a long, slow run. Trying a different strategy. We'll see how it works.
Well, listen, you'll celebrate my becoming a U.S. resident by running 100 miles.
And I can't think of any way to better celebrate it than to just be suffering.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be thinking about you. I also wanted to chat a little bit about what you see your career trajectory as, right? And this is one thing, you and I are close to the same age. You're a little bit younger than me, but there have been many chapters in your career.
Mm-hmm.
As you look to the lessons you've learned along the way, and you look to the evolution of health and fitness, where do you see your career going?
I hate 5-year plans. I'll say this. I love the tactical space.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's lots of opportunity there. Could go and be a kind of a coordinator or director over a unit. Or like, I think probably another option would be if, this online and Hoopie Hybrid takes off, that becomes full time. Because when I was young, and even now to a large degree, all I care about is training. And before I met my wife, before I met Cayt, I didn't care about anything except training. I'm being dead serious. I didn't care about anything or anyone. And I was actually a really selfish person. Cayt has taught me a lot of humility, a lot of grace, and that work is not everything. And so if I'm able to leverage this online expedition and able to make more time for me and her, I think that is probably what I'm going to do. And it all comes back to the fact that one day I'm going to die, and it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I want to spend my time? I think about my death all the time. Actually, usually
Me
when I'm
too.
running,
Me too.
I think about it all the time, all the time, and it makes you think about what's really important,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes you focus on going forward. Um, I can project myself forward a little bit and see what does my life look like and how am I going to make that happen. And some things are in your control and some things aren't. I don't know if Hoopie Hybrid will be big enough so we can just uproot and go somewhere and have more time to each other and maybe make a family and all that stuff. But um, that is what is going to be most important to me, and that is a radical change from how I viewed life even 6 years ago.
Oh,
Was
dude.
everything was training and everything was about the job, and so that's my plan. Is I'm going to do everything in my power to make this hybrid training work, or to make some opportunity to where we can spend more time together. And you know I don't want to work. This is why I got a collegiate. I don't want to work 80 hours a week and be in a gym for 80 hours a week. I
Same.
love training. Such an important part of my life. It's even, I would say, maybe too important, an integral part of my life. But at the same time, I'm of two minds about everything. But at the same time, I have to tell myself it's not that important, and that there's better things.
Yeah, I mean, as you were talking, I was kind of snickering because like it's exactly how I feel about, my career trajectory and, my marriage and how that changed the way I look at things, all the way down to like I didn't want a family at all until I met my wife, and now it's the thing I probably want the most. But I also, think about death a lot, and I think about, time as being this non-renewable resource that we never get back. So I want to make sure that if I'm going to spend time, it's going to be on things that really fulfill me. And I also made a conscious decision about 4 years ago that I wasn't going to do anything to me that wasn't fun. So as long as I'm having fun and I'm doing things that I enjoy, the fact that I can monetize those is great. But ultimately, it comes down to enjoying my time on this earth and spending it with the people that I want to spend it with. And for me, the online space has been phenomenal. I'm probably incredibly biased to say that it's the best job in the world, but training is always going to be important to me. It's always going to be integral to who I am as a person and, the way I choose to pursue life. And if that's more than what most people think is okay, then I don't care. It's not their life, it's mine. Right? Like I still, like for all intents and purposes, you could look at it and be like, oh, well, Paul does cardio every day and trains 5 days a week. That's just too much training. It's like, yeah, it's too much for you. But for me, I love it. And it's basically like brushing my teeth. I'm sure it's the same for you. You hop out to the garage, you get a lift in later in the day, you go for a run or vice versa. It's like, it's just what you do. And
Yep. Yeah, I like to think of it, and a lot of times I think about, why do I train? And I think that a lot of it comes back to this idea of like path dependency,
okay.
is that things happen a long time ago, 25, 26, 27 years ago. And I made some decisions, and it started leading me down the path of this exercise, training, whatnot, lifting, running. And then that path eventually became so embedded, and it's been so long that I've gone down this road of training, is that it's very hard to deviate now from that path. And so it's almost like, in this path dependency theory, I don't know if you're familiar or not, but it basically says that when you're given a choice, is that you don't just have the options in front of you. So you want to eat pizza, or you want to eat a salad. Is that you don't have just the option in front of you. What also weighs in is all of the decisions you made regarding this specific decision before. So if you
Mm,
always choose a salad, it is very hard to deviate and choose the pizza. And so that is, I think, how my training is now. I'm going to do this because I've chosen this so many times that it is very hard to deviate from choosing from it. That path of choosing training and choosing it daily is so well ingrained. I imagine a river, like the Mississippi River. It would be trying to divert the Mississippi River over into Arizona. It's just not going to happen. That path is so well ingrained. It is going to be almost impossible to deviate from it.
I love that. What would be a lesson that you would give yourself when we first met? So you're speaking to Cody in 14 years ago.
Dude, he's not going to listen. He's not listening to anything.
I said the exact same thing.
He's not going to listen to anything. He's going to do the opposite of what you tell him. If I had to tell him, I'd be like, "Hey, you idiot, stupid, dumb. Hey, why don't you?" I would spend more time being a better son and a better brother and a better uncle and better to those people, because that is something that I probably do regret, is that I could have been a better grandson. I could have been a better nephew. And those are things that in some cases, my grandparents are dead. I'll never get back. And so that would be something I would tell him. He won't do it, but that's something I would say now, knowing what I know now. To reframe this into what I think now, how I think now, is that I wake up in the morning, and before work, I'll go run. So early in the morning, I'll get up. I go in, and Kate's still in bed. I'll go in. I'll say goodbye, and I kiss her and give her a hug. And I have this image in my head, and it's maybe, I don't know, 2000, or the number 2000, whatever, and it ticks down to 1999, and now that's a hug and a kiss I'll never get back. And so it makes me stay in the moment and makes me stay grateful. And it says, okay, this is a reality. You have a finite amount of hugs and kisses. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about it?
That's fucking powerful, man. That's fucking powerful. I mean, you talk about, being a better son. I think I would be remiss not to mention that your parents live in the coolest house ever.
Yeah.
It's like for listeners, it's a dome, like a legitimate dome.
Mm-hmm.
And your dad laid every single brick on like the 1 mile road from the road to the house.
Yep. Yeah, he did.
That's so cool.
I mean, this is like, I am to exercise what he is to life, because he can build, and he can do some carpentry, he can do some building, he can write, he can do some plumbing, he can do I don't even know what electrical work. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I can't do any of that. But I can, I'm decent at lifting program. I'm decent at running programming. I'm decent at, team sports, tactical, triathlon, ultra, like every different type of field sport, more cyclic sports like swimming, track, field. Like, I can do a little bit of everything, but don't distract from my parents being awesome generalists, and that's kind of what I inherited from them.
What's been your greatest coaching achievement?
It's going to be cliche. The cliche part is but it's true. It's like getting invited to weddings, having them continue to be a part of your life. We actually we had a few athletes. I probably had between 5 and 7 of my ex-athletes actually be in our Hoopie Hybrid, one of our beginning cohorts.
That's cool, man.
So yeah, and it's like from years and years ago. I'm talking like 10 years ago,
that's
12
awesome.
years ago. So I still get to be in contact with them. I still get to be a part of their lives. And it's very humbling to hear people say that, because it's like, who am I? Like, people say, you help me, or You influenced me. You're a mentor to me, and that type of stuff. I don't take lightly, because you can't give yourself the title of mentor. You can't give yourself the title of leader. That has to be gifted to you.
Agree.
And it truly is. It's something that I feel is so undeserved, and it really makes me very grateful to have had the experiences that I've had so far. And I just like to tell all my athletes that I love them, I miss them, and I'll talk to you soon.
I love that, man. I'm going to skip over the billboard questions because you kind of answered it already. Then the last question I have for you is, if there was one guest that you would like to see me interview on the podcast, who would it be? But the caveat is you have to help me get them on the podcast.
This is the toughest question that you've asked me so far.
It can't be the toughest question I've asked.
This is the toughest.
Just who's front of mind?
Milan Jovanovic.
Okay, I can't spell that, but I'll have them on the podcast.
Mladen Jovanovic. Yeah, probably by my biggest influence in training in general.
All right, help me get them on.
All right, I'll do that.
Dude, thank you so much for joining me. I'll have links to where everyone can find you and Hoopie in the show notes. And it's been fucking awesome. I miss you, dude. And I'm actually very pumped. It's the first time anyone's going to hear about it, but Cody and I are going to be collaborating on a tactical strength conditioning course for Coach's Corner University, which I'm very excited about working with him again. Anything else you want to say to the audience? No, that's it. Train hard. And if you have any questions in terms of training, I come from a very abundance mindset. So my time and all that, if you just want to shoot me a message and just have a quick conversation about something you're struggling with, or, strategizing on training, like, I'm more than willing to, like, pick up the phone and talk to somebody about training and performance in general. I think the audience doesn't actually know that their phone can make phone calls anymore. Yeah. It's one of the features. It's one of the features. Yeah. Dude, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, Paul.